Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Becoming ZeroV. My name is Angela Conway, and I'm the Senior Communications Specialist at ZeroV. And today I'll be discussing the Kentucky Coalition Against Domestic Violence's transition into who we are now as ZeroV. But before we dive in, I'd like to share with you a message from our CEO, Angela Yanelli.
Hello, my name is Angela Yanelli, and I am the CEO of ZeroV. We have undergone a rebranding evolution and are no longer the Kentucky Coalition Against Domestic Violence. However, we are still the same dedicated coalition that survivors, advocates, and the community can count on to champion the dignity and worth of survivors of domestic violence. In fact, we have broadened our scope to pave the way for future generations to work towards systems change. Our new mission is a testament to this fact, which is to abolish the social conditions and systems that spark, enable, and amplify intimate partner violence, and to create communities where all Kentuckians can live and thrive in safety and peace. I am especially proud and honored to be a part of this evolution, and I hope that no matter what your position or relationship is with ZeroV, that you will join us in envisioning a world where all people can live violence-free and flourish abundantly.
To better understand why KCADV has undergone this branding evolution, this video will offer insight into the challenges of our existing KCADV name, brand, and organizational aspirations, and then provide an overview of our rebranding components designed to overcome these challenges. To get started, let's acknowledge some of the challenges we face with KCADV's existing name, brand, and organizational aspirations. The Kentucky Coalition Against Domestic Violence has been the statewide organization advocating for the lives and futures of survivors of domestic violence for more than 40 years. And yet, with over 4 decades of progressive change, KCADV's name, brand, and organizational aspirations were limiting. Firstly, we'd outgrown our name, and it no longer aligned with the full scope of the work that we do. We not only advocate against domestic violence on behalf of survivors of domestic violence, but we challenge the systems that reinforce and perpetuate violence. These systems put the lives of survivors at risk long after they've exited a violent relationship. Systems like poverty, racism, and homelessness, to name a few, are just some of the systems that put survivors at risk for re-victimization. Secondly, we wanted to expand our influence. The solution to ending domestic violence cannot be the responsibility of our coalition and shelter programs alone. We needed an organization that energizes and motivates our communities and our decision makers to become partners with us, working collectively to accelerate change. And finally, the narrative about how we talk about domestic violence was changing. Domestic violence coalitions began in the 1970s with the emerging issue of battered wives, and many still viewed our coalition services in that very same way, narrowly and exclusively. As advocates, we know that the impact of domestic violence is not exclusive to the relationships themselves in which it occurs. Domestic violence has a ripple effect that is deeply felt in our communities and beyond. We also know that survivors and their lives don't fit neatly into boxes. KCADV provides services to survivors of all gender identities, sexual orientations, familial statuses, immigration status, housing statuses, and more. And so we needed a name, a brand, and an organizational aspiration that reflected our commitment to survivors of all identities. One that not only allows us to serve survivors better, but one that shows Kentucky our broadened lens for survivor services and accessibility. So when we talk about expanding our influence, what do we mean? It meant that we had to implement some new strategies to bring more people in. The strategies that we wanted to implement were to communicate with the public and to create a broad-based awareness of our cause. We're not just talking to and amongst ourselves anymore. We wanted to bring the public into the conversation. We wanted messaging that required us to step outside of our comfort zone and that allowed us to think bigger, and a brand that helped us to grow our allies. And we wanted to create awareness about the root causes of violence, educate about the impact of violence on our society, and rally engagement in and support for actions to diffuse this violence. We had some new targets for our new branding. Of course, we have our 15 designated domestic violence program members and our current allies, but we wanted to grow our base, and this includes a greater focus on government, both state and local, funding sources, our businesses, medical, legal, and law enforcement professionals, our educators, our civic and service clubs and groups, our community influencers, and of course, the public. With all of these new and bold priorities, we sought to accomplish our ambitious goals through the power of rebranding. Our brand, in part, is who we are. Eradicating intimate partner violence and supporting survivors is our heart, our spirit, and our impulse. We are engaged in a battle against formidable odds as we are few in number and our resources are finite. And so, to prevail, we must be bold and fearless, take risks, and break new ground. We must be unafraid to speak clearly and strongly, say what we stand for, what we want, and what we dream, and be the rallying cry that inspires others to join our cause. And so, we became ZeroV. Let's now go into what our brand name and logo truly mean and how it represents what we do. KCADV is now ZeroV. Our dream of a world with zero violence is baked right into our name. There's no ambiguity about why we exist, what we stand for, and what our aspirations are. ZeroV is a name that is boldly unique with resonance. It's easy to say, and it's hard to forget. It sets the stage for a facts and figures approach to the inherently emotional issue of violence, and it's an approach that will resonate with decision makers and the community. Zero is a powerful concept that cuts across all cultures and languages. Let's talk a little bit about how we conceptualized our logo. The concept for our logo was to create a visceral representation of violence through the use of these jagged lines. These lines show how violence manifests, how it builds, and how it escalates. We often talk about complicated and pervasive violence is, and our logo helps depict just that, starting with the emotional, then verbal, physical, and then its escalation. This is how it manifests, grows, and is entwined. And so it is our job as ZeroV, the role of the community, and the role of the state to rein it in, to curb the violence and contain its escalation. The jagged lines denoting violence diminish, ultimately dwindling to zero, which is our ultimate goal. The word zero is superimposed on the jagged background to denote the strength and the ascendance of the positive over the negative in changing the landscape of violence. We wanted to use a font that communicated strength and suggest that we're an organization that is both confident and well established. Using capital letters represents our voice as one of unequivocal authority in our field, and we're a force to be reckoned with. And all of the applications of the letter V in violence will appear in the same color as it is in the logo. This is to establish a clear linkage to expand people's understanding of how violence manifests in the world. Our tagline, Kentucky United Against Violence. We are Kentucky, a centralized statewide presence standing together, speaking collectively with one voice. The word united echoes the Kentucky state motto, united we stand, divided we fall. And this idea that what affects the well-being of one affects the well-being of all. The positioning communicates that we are not a single organization toiling alone, but that the entire state is engaged with us in a common cause. Kentucky United conjures the image of a large number of people, a force that speaks for a mission, a clear picture, and creating a statewide movement dedicated to solving the problem of violence in which everyone can play a part. Our mission statement is to abolish the social conditions and systems that spark, enable, and amplify intimate partner violence, and to create communities where all Kentuckians can live and thrive in safety and peace. Our color palette nods to our traditions as a domestic violence organization and then looks to the future, communicating the impact of violence across the state. For any questions or comments, please feel free to email me, Angela Conway, at the email provided here in the video. Thank you so much for joining us today as we reintroduce ourselves as ZeroV. We're excited to have you join us in our new and exciting chapter as an anti-violence organization. And together, we can create futures free from violence for all.